Chapter 20. Memories are like wine, no matter how much time passes, they both remain fragrant. Rose and Yang Chen's first meeting was both bloody and dramatic. When Rose's feminine voice finished narrating those memories, Yang Chen was a little speechless. Half a year ago, these two people, through that coincidence, became acquaintances. From that point on, the occasional casual exchange developed into a delicate relationship, a little distant, a little ambiguous, a little exciting. Playing with her long black hair, Rose hugged her knees, smiled intoxicatingly and said, "Yang Chen, before you appeared, do you know what I was thinking of?" "What?" "I recall the fairy tales my mother used to tell me when I was a child. In those stories, whenever a weak princess was in danger from a fiendish villain, a knight in shining armor would always appear and rescue her from the depths of misery. In the end, the prince and princess lived happily ever after. I always thought that line was senseless, but you made it all come true," Rose said, with her happy eyes tenderly looking at Yang Chen. Yang Chen touches his nose. "I did not expect you to have such a sensitive and childish side." Hee. Note, in Chinese, hee can also be sarcastic as in a cold laugh. Rose lightly laughs. "How do I put it? I know that I'm no princess, and you are no knight in shining armor. Yep, not even a knight in shitty armor, there isn't even a horse or armor. You just fell from the skies like a ghost. However, at that time I felt that all these weren't important. I just thought, if only there's someone like that beside me in the future. He doesn't need to protect me all day, or always make me happy. As long as, at the time when I can't walk anymore, support me a little, when I'm hurt, provide me a chest to snuggle to, allowing me to not be so helpless, not be so lonely, that is all I want." Rose. Yang Chen extends out his hand, stroking her moist and delicate cheek. "I'll be honest with you, I'm not a good person. In the past, the number of women who I had relations with reached 800 if not 1000. As I have said before, you don't need a strong helper. With your circumstances, perhaps finding an honest, reliable man who wholeheartedly loves you will be for the best. That's no longer possible." Rose's eyes turned a little mischievous. "Yang Chen, do you know the relationship between the monkeys and their king?" "Group of monkeys. Their king." Yang Chen was puzzled, and asked, "What are you trying to say?" "In a group of monkeys, the king is the strongest male. All the female monkeys in the group become that monkey's mating partner is the instinct of the female is to choose the strongest mate. This way, their offspring will have better genes. Like monkeys, throughout history, people in human society have also behaved this way. Why do you think men with power have had numerous wives and concubines? Even those forced to become his mate, do you think they're actually unwilling? Since they can have the best, why should they settle for the mediocre?" Yang Chen, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, responded, "From this, have we become monkeys? I was just using an analogy. I want you to know." Rose's gaze gradually became resolute, staring straight at Yang Chen. "I love you, Yang Chen." Staying silent for over a minute, the smile on Yang Chen's face gradually turned stronger. Somewhat relieved, and somewhat playfully he said, "You are really a stupid woman." Rose's incomparably perturbed look now showed the color of happiness. She shook her head and said, "So what if I'm a stupid woman? I don't regret anything. Do you know what my original purpose for coming was?" Yang Chen's gaze moved up and down, as if trying to pry into the scene underneath Rose's nightgown with his eyes. Although Rose was mentally prepared, it all flew out the window with Yang Chen's undisguised lascivious gaze, as she still blushed and her heart pounded hard, revealing a rare shy appearance. What do you want to do?" Yang Chen slowly closed in on Rose's beautiful little earlobe, and gently bit on that tender piece of flesh. "Yi." As if electricity passed through her body, Rose leaned onto Yang Chen's chest like she was melting, and starts to pant. "Today I came here to eat you up, you pink and tender female monkey." Not waiting for Rose to react, Yang Chen gave out a pent-up groan, fiercely hugged Rose's small waist, and tossed this soft-to-the-bone figure into the middle of the bed. Rose, stunned by this sudden blessing, shut her eyes, allowing Yang Chen to stroke and knead her body, kissing it while her two little hands tightly gripped the bed sheets. The smooth silk nightgown was torn away from the body by two rough hands. The snow-white skin was exposed to the air, diffusing a scorching charm. As if he couldn't let go of a single inch of skin, Yang Chen's fiery kissing started from the little navel, and glided upwards along the smooth belly, then he unhesitantly unclasped the black chiffon bra, placing the 2D cup or above tender flesh into his mouth, continuously nibbling and sucking it. Perhaps it has been too long since he clear-headedly enjoyed such a ripe woman's body. Yang Chen felt his boiling blood was difficult to suppress. Really fragrant. Rose, who usually took the initiative, is now like a shy teenager. Upon hearing such blatant praise, her blush only got deeper, and she was completely unable to retort. Finally, when Yang Chen's lips kisses Rose's cherry lips, like lightning and fire, two wet tongues intertwine around each other non-stop. Rose's sweet juices led Yang Chen to search for it endlessly, to the point Rose had difficult breathing, and only then does Yang Chen unwillingly kiss other places. Rose was completely lost within her first fiery entanglement, her body soft like it's made of water, with every part of it turning into a sensitive nerve ending. A mere touch allowed the flooded wet marshes to flow even more. Once Yang Chen released the two's bodies from all constraints, one of his hands dug for Rose's secret garden. The wet to flooding nectar once again caused Yang Chen's hormones to accelerate. Oh. Rose, my darling, so you are this sensitive, the amount of water below could be used to shower. Woo. Unable to curb with the shame, Rose turned away. She has never experienced such a situation and was totally unable to speak, so she could only vaguely protest. Yang Chen, who was unable to endure any longer, no longer spoke. He drew out his long, fierce-looking erected dragon head, and fiercely barged into Rose's tender flower bud. Rose felt as if her low half was being torn off. That moment of pain, accompanied by long-awaited happiness, made her release two streams of tears, and what followed was instead wave after wave of innumerable impacts. For a time, the room's temperature sharply rises, the man's deep breathing and the lady's staggered wails reverberate through the room. Chapter 21. After about an hour, the couple finally calmed down after rolling around the big bed. They used a big blanket to cover the mess, and snuggled with each other. It seemed that Rose had yet to recover her senses as her whole body leaned weakly onto Yang Chen's chest, her two lumps of tender flesh squeezed each other, displaying an erotic sight. The woman who experienced the humid rainfall at that point seemed extraordinarily enchanting. She gently clawed at Yang Chen's chest, and somewhat coquettishly said, "So it turns out doing this thing is this tiring, it's better not to do it in the future." "Up to you." Yang Chen grabbed onto the rare beautiful shoulders, and evilly said, "If you won't do it, I can still find other ladies to do. You have no conscience, mentioning other women right after tormenting me." Rose doesn't know to laugh or to cry and gave Yang Chen a slap, then immediately followed with a question of curiosity. "By the way, the reason you came here today can't truly be to do that, right?" Yang Chen stretched out a hand and pinched Rose's tender face lightly. "You could say it's a yes, yet also say it's a no." "What do you mean?" Rose considered herself intelligent, yet she couldn't understand what was going on in the mind of the man she loves. Yang Chen got up from the bed, flipped his pants around and drew out that pack of poor-quality cigarettes, lit up one of them and enjoyed blowing a few smoke rings, then comfortably smiled and said, "The reason it's a yes, is because you indeed attract me, yep. Since long ago I've wanted to eat up the free little fat sheep you are. But you know, because your background is a little troublesome, eating you up is the equivalent to the end of my normal and relaxed lifestyle. Therefore, I had to forcefully endure my hunger." Rose nodded her head in understanding. "I know, you aren't willing to get involved with the West region underworld conflicts, while I'm the Red Thorn Society's president. Getting together with me is the same as going against the entire West Union Society. It is only natural that you aren't willing to accept me, but why have you now? Could it be now you plan to?" Seeing Rose's hesitant way of speaking, Yang Chen laughed and said, "You don't need to think so hard. That's right, because of some distasteful behaviors, I am now extremely disgusted by your dad's West Union Society. Or you could say, it's a few members in the West Union Society causing my days become a headache to pass, and so I thought, rather than hiding around like the other old guys, why not turn the entire West region into your territory? Although that would take some effort, and have several minor repercussions, but..." At this point, Yang Chen greedily swept his gaze onto Rose's sexy figure, licked his lips and said, "But, since I could wipe out those pests, and also eat up a stupid woman like you, I'm more than happy to." Being called "stupid woman" by her lover made Rose unable to endure from rolling her charming eyes. "So there's such a reason, seems like you came here today to claim down payment." After finding out Yang Chen's aim, Rose didn't ask Yang Chen what his plans were, and wasn't worried about him either. As of that moment, Rose had already determined that this is perhaps one of the reasons why Yang Chen likes this woman so much. If she was merely a beauty, then Rose would be the same as the other girls he played with, and he would end the relationship after intercourse. However, Rose is obviously a woman who knows how to make a man happy. She believed in Yang Chen's abilities, things that Yang Chen does not want to say. She wouldn't ask. If Yang Chen wants to keep the listener in suspense, she would conform to him by appearing interested. When Yang Chen does not come to meet her, she would not disturb Yang Chen for no reason, and would only silently await for him at a quiet place. When Yang Chen comes to see her, she would then passionately throw herself at Yang Chen, letting her man know how much she missed him. The more Rose holds herself back like this, without any desires or demands, the more difficult Yang Chen finds it is to part with her. The truth is Yang Chen also pondered whether the situation with Chen Feng was merely an excuse he convinced himself with. If the status quo continued a little longer, perhaps even if West Union society did not offend him, he would likely destroy them just because of Rose, for she is his close confidant and lover. After the two shared another hot kiss, the skies outside have darkened, and the lights of the city began lighting up. Seeing that it was about time, Yang Chen no longer procrastinated, and got up to put on his clothes. Rose originally wanted to help, but did not expect the moment she stood up, a sharp pain made her crease her eyebrows instead. She bit her lips, and said with a weird voice, "It's all your fault, you've made me all swollen." "Hey," Yang Chen awkwardly laughs and says, "I saw that you didn't bleed, and thought you were all right. It can't be that this was your first time." Rose was so angry that her face turned white. "That hymen of mine was accidentally torn while I was doing splits in my childhood. What about it, you think I'm loose?" "No, no, no." Yang Chen hurriedly laughed and said, "My dear darling Rose, I was just wondering how you normally curb your demands. That part of yours is so tight I can't even pull it out. How could it be loose, hee hee." After hearing Yang Chen's embarrassing words, Rose felt like laughing yet also felt angry, so she simply pulled the blanket over her face and no longer cared about Yang Chen. Yang Chen lifted the blanket and smiled in satisfaction, and while quickly walking towards the door he seemed to have remembered something important, and asked, "Rose darling, my wife wants me to go find a job, and it must be an upright one. I'm thinking of choosing a leisure and unconstrained job, but I'm not familiar with the companies in Zhanghai. Which would you say is suitable?" "Your wife." Rose's head popped out of the blanket like a bullet, with a pair of huge eyes. "Since when did you have a wife?" Sigh, a living Buddha, with a poker face all day. "We just got the marriage certificate today. The circumstances aren't convenient to speak of, but I am now married." Yang Chen shook his head in distress. Rose's expression changed 10,000 times in a single moment, and said with an aggrieved tone, "Although I've never thought of being the legal wife, but you don't need to strike me so hard, right? I've become the mistress so fast." "You don't want to be the legal wife. Why?" Yang Chen curiously asked. "Being the legal wife is not suitable for me. After all, I'm someone who lives in the dark, and cannot openly appear in public. Also, I don't look like a good wife and a loving mother at all, am I right? My good hubby." With that, Rose glamorously rolled her eyes at Yang Chen. "You alluring evil spirit." Yang Chen nearly wanted to draw his gun to battle again. After delicately laughing for a while, Rose didn't seem to mind Yang Chen's marriage too much. She thought for a moment, and suggested, "If you like to see beauties, and want freedom, then go to Yulei International. They specialize in the fashion industry and cosmetics. Within Zhanghai, and even within the entire country, they are considered a huge company. I saw on the news that Yulei International's public relations department is hiring, and is accepting both male and female applicants. I heard many males are even rushing to apply. Public relations department. Men applying." Yang Chen understood in a flash, and hurriedly asked, "So it seems this Yulei International has plenty of beauties, huh?" "Yep, good treatment, good welfare, and most importantly Yulei International is considered the company with the most beauties in the entire Zhanghai. After all, they do fashion and cosmetics. I think this is what you want, hubby." Rose revealed a "I know you very well" expression. Yang Chen wasn't embarrassed, and nodded in gratification. Great suggestion, great suggestion. The salary isn't important but the environment is, yep. I'll go do some research and apply tomorrow. When Yang Chen walks out of the room, Rose, who is on the bed, watches the door close and sighs. What Rose doesn't know is, when Yang Chen walked a short distance from the room, he smacks his chest, and whispers in relief, "How dangerous, keeping a mistress makes my heart tremble in fear." Chapter 22. After walking out of Rose Bar, Yang Chen rushed home with his car, but almost took the wrong route, because Yang Chen is still not accustomed to having moved to Dragon Garden. When he thought of how he has to face Lin Ruoxi's pretty yet frosty little face at home, Yang Chen unexpectedly looked forward to it. His wife constantly gives him the urge to tease her, as if they were enemies in their previous life. The car drove past the suburbs, then reached the highway entrance. Yang Chen suddenly noticed the car behind him shooting its high beams at him. Frowning, Yang Chen chose to shift to another lane, but who could have known, right after shifting lanes, another car behind him began shooting its beams at him. The rear mirror of the car reflected the intense light. At this time there is very low traffic on the suburbs roads, and it is also a one-way dual-lane road. Yang Chen gloomily discovered that he has been marked by a driving club. However, a BMW M3 all in all isn't an average car. It is practically a top-tier car amongst production vehicles, and is not easily overtaken by normal cars. These driving club members obviously don't have an ordinary background. As expected, without waiting for Yang Chen to think of how to deal with them, the two cars overtook him separately from left and right. The two car shadows suddenly show their strength, one black and one white. At the speed of 120, the BMW M3 is ruthlessly left behind, then, the two cars line up to block the M3. Yang Chen finally saw these two cars clearly. If he didn't see, he wouldn't know, yet seeing them gave him a shock. It's actually a Ferrari F430 and a BMW M6. Both of these two cars could defeat the M3 Super Coupe. Although among Ferraris, the F430 is only a mere improvement to the F360, and belongs to the entry class of Ferraris, but in the end it is still a Ferrari. A top speed of 320 kph is not achieved by boasting, it is made by the roars of the engine. As for the BMW M6, although it is only 3 numbers more than the M3, it belongs to the BMW 6 Series. How could a 5.0L displacement engine be easy to deal with? Its price tag alone is over 700,000, it's an absolute luxury product. Yang Chen was somewhat helpless. If it was just these two cars dealing with him, Yang Chen still had confidence that he could rely driving skills to find opportunities to overtake and get rid of them, but the moment Yang Chen caught a glimpse of the car blocking him from behind, Yang Chen could only give up. It turns out that is a fire-red Porsche 911. This model has been in production for 40 years under Porsche. With so many years of reforms and renewals, the core design remains almost the same. One could only imagine the original design's level of quality. Merely the comparison between the top speed his own BMW M3 and the top speed of that car is a difference of 70 to 80, and there is no way to go around this difference. Just by seeing these cars, Yang Chen has understood a few things. These guys aren't a group of car robbers. People who could buy such cars definitely wouldn't lack money. Seems like they are merely a few rich kids out for a spin, trying to make fun of his little sports car. Yang Chen once again lamented the world, for little kids go around looking for trouble instead of studying, and yet at the same time Yang Chen was also too lazy to deal with them. One less incident is better than one more, therefore, he slowed down his car, intending to let them go past. However, things presently, according to the laws of Zhonghai, if the car behind knocks the car in front, it is by law that the car behind pays for all damages. Thus with this scenario, if Yang Chen knocks the two cars in front he has to pay for both of them, but if the Porsche behind knocks the driver only needs to pay for one person's share. Therefore, he would make a loss from this trade. Once he understood the thought process of these rich playboys, Yang Chen reveals a devilish smile. Such a bad taste. If it's about playing with cars, he doesn't dare to call himself the best, but he is still top class. In the past he drove dozens of reputable cars on Germany's Nürburgring, and was even close to the best records for a majority of them. After doing some calculations, Yang Chen firmly decided to give these guys a ruthless counter. As they say, eat one mistake and you'll grow one bit wiser. Since their parents did not teach them well, then let this young uncle do it for them. During that moment of thought, Yang Chen's hands had already started moving, clutch, brake, handbrake, and the steering wheel fiercely rotates. After a series of eye-blurring adjustments, the entire M3 in that moment drifts and turned a full 180 degrees. Chi. The tire and tarmac emitted a harsh grinding sound, with the white smoke being rather conspicuous in the night. The red tail lights flung a sharp and beautiful red line. When the M3 moved forward again, it was already moving backwards towards the Porsche 911, about to knock it. The abrupt turn of events had the drivers of these cars bewildered. How did this fella do it? Drifting. Does he think he is Initial D's Fujiwara Takumi? However, human instinct told the Porsche driver at the back, this fella actually wants to collide head-to-head with me, he wants to do a direct collision at over 100 km/h. Two whistling car shadows, like two violent bullets, are right about to collide face-to-face. At the time that this rapid 160 km/h Porsche saw this scene, without any time to hesitate, the driver could only turn the steering wheel towards the roadside parking lots. The thing that left these drivers incomparably frightened is, this BMW M3 actually didn't have the slightest intention to change directions. And it cut straight through the initial path. If it wasn't for the Porsche promptly changing directions, then this would definitely have caused both parties to suffer severe injuries, and would have been an accident that totally wrecked both cars. What's more, out of the two of them one would have been squeezed into a patty. Cold sweat poured out of all these cars' owners. This fella is toying with life. Is he unafraid of death? The M6 and F430 in front both come to a stop, pulling over at the side. Two youngsters in designer T-shirts got off, and blocked the road forward with unkind expressions. Yang Chen slowly turned the car around, stopped the car at the side of the road, and walked towards the two guys. He knew that without making things clear they would not give way. The Porsche's owner also got off the car, but what made Yang Chen surprised is it was actually a girl. However, the way this girl dressed was abnormal, wearing a pink mushroom-shaped wig, a white cartoon T-shirt, and a jean shorts full of holes. What made things worse was, the girl's earrings were two skulls, and both her bracelet and necklace were silver crosses. In contrast was a smooth, delicate face with clear brows and beautiful eyes, especially that pair of eyes that already showed a faint youthful and devilish charm. Only the body wasn't fully developed, still looking like green apples. She should be of high school age. The girl's pair of rich-looking eyes stared straight at Yang Chen as he approached her. When face to face, she promptly extended a small hand which had a purple little butterfly tattoo on it, revealed two cute tiger teeth. She crisply laughed and said, "My name is Tang Tang, nice to meet you." TL, in Mandarin it's called tiger teeth, but it just means maxillary canine, eye teeth. Usually young teenagers have them. Her name, Tang, literally translates to sugar or sweet, quite cute. It's only her given name, by the way. Yang Chen looked at this girl, Tang Tang, a little surprised. He was initially expecting a big scene full of crying instead of a friendly handshake. Without much hesitation, Yang Chen extends his hand and gently grips Tang Tang's hand. "My name is Yang Chen, not nice to meet you all."